So, you're ready to facilitate the game. This video is for you. After having a couple of people facilitate with the game, having a bit of a practice, there's a few threads which are quite common. So I wanted to do this video. Thank you to Wanda for prompting me more than ever by the questions that you asked and by your style of learning, which I purely appreciate. So the way that it works is I've emailed you all the image, I can't even think of the word, the image of Empower in an Hour. Now, I wouldn't advise you to share this image with anybody other than through sharing the screen. So when you go on to Zoom, you already access the file. So everybody's been emailed it, so you should have it in your email. What I invite you to do is to save it onto your desktop so you can access it quite easily. But if you've got a phone, make sure that you can access it quickly. Once you're able to access, then you click on the image, then come into your Zoom and press share, and then you should see the game as an option to share. So this is where we're starting from, so we share the screen. We do have a zoom in button. That zoom in button is going to help us to go in and out when we're sharing the game so people can see the bigger images, and then we zoom in as each person plays. And what we do is we move the arrow around, and that's what we do. We move the board around just by clicking on it, however your computer works, so that you can see all of the board. Okay, so as each person is going around the board, then you're able to move this around just like I did when I played with you, so that you can show them the board. Now you can change the board, you can rotate the board so that they see directly what you see, but it is tricky. If you want to do it, it's perfectly fine. When we first start the game, we open the game, just like what I've just done now. We open the game up and we say, welcome to Empower in an Hour, as an example. And we can say the aim of the game, to be enlarge it, is to recognize empowerment as a choice. How do we do that? We do that by stating specific tasks, specific goals, tasks, and actions achievable in 30 days. I often say, or a year, 12 months, 5 years, 10 years. It depends on how you organize your life and set goals. Depends on if you've got any big goals, any small goals. So whichever goals, but we can focus on goals that could be achievable in 30 days, but we might find that some of them actually will take a bit longer. That's all that we're saying. Now, you could read out the disclaimer now. Normally I read out the disclaimer first, but I wanted to show you that there are different ways that we can do it as long as it gets done. So we can rotate, or we can just read. And I was saying to Wanda today, it's quite nice people going like this, if they're able to kind of like to read around as you're going, just to get some movement going into the person. So we read out the disclaimer and we say that there is no disclaimer to play the game, and we make sure that it's large enough for people to see and that you're moving it around as you're reading it out. So you're not reading it necessarily off your game, you're reading it from the screen because you're making that contact with the other person who's playing, and there's some form of a contract that's forming. So remember that a lot of this is based on our energies and their energy. And as we clear our energy of our stuff, we're allowing energy to understand and pick up any little bits of nuances that's going on with the other person as we're interacting. So when we do this bit, we share it on the screen so that there is no disclaimer to play this game, because the player will learn that we are all responsible for our perceptions and interpretations of anything and everything we experience. Anyone playing this game is wise enough to make their own choices, and therefore acknowledges that we cannot, do not, and will not tell anyone what to do, just offer suggestions or alternative viewpoints. The responsibility of action is upon the player. Now we go around with the arrow pointing so that we're reading the same thing at the same time, and they can see where you're up to, because the intention is to show your transparency. I would suggest, if you haven't done, read the instructions on the game, how to play. Stage 1, collect the seedling and pen and choose an area of change from the choice list. So we've already identified it there. So we're going to do stage 1. So stage 1 is choose the card. So we ask, have you got your card printed out? If you haven't got it printed out, have you drawn it out? Because we're going to be making references to that throughout the game. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so because we've already said we're choosing an area of change and focus from the choice list. So you can see choices here, and this is the list that we're choosing from. So we're asking, is there anything that jumps out to you, that you gravitate, which is what Wanda said today? Different terms are going to come out from us, that's okay. What we're trying to do is establish where there's an imbalance, maybe an area that you'd like to work on and focus on today that you've never looked at. Maybe there's an area that's pressing with you. So these are all some of the things that come out. You will choose whichever one feels right for you. So then we read them out before they make the choice. Okay, so the choices are times or something specific. The line kind of like means or in many ways. Wellness or health, finance, money. They're the same, but some people will resonate with the word money, some people resonate with the word finance. So this is why we're helping people to make choices. Personal development and training, hopes, dreams, legacy, contribution, or plan and goal. And all these symbols, as we know, are on the game. These are all the 6 areas that we have in common, more or less. So what we're doing with the game is we're really bringing in our commonalities, not our differences, our similarities, okay? So when the person chooses, as you can see over here, as it says, stage 2, write the area of change or focus at the top of the seedling card on side 1. So on side 1 of the card, which they should have in front of them, you're just pointing out and you're saying, okay, at the top of the card where it says area of change or focus, you're just going to write the area that you've just chosen and put today's date. Okay, so that's so that they can go back and look to see how they've moved. To begin the game, so each player throws the die, the lowest one begins. Take turns to play the game in a clockwise direction. So this is clockwise, all the instructions are here. Collecting related counter, which is a seedling, so the little final pieces, as you go, which indicate your commitment to yourself. So as we're going along, we're going to be collecting these seedlings, the clock. We're starting here, red. This is where we're starting, day 1. We've collected the card. As we move around, we're collecting, there's 2 layers to this game. We're collecting these seedlings as we're going along, and we're answering whatever's on the board. And as I said, that when we kind of like play the first 7, kind of like the first 7, be gentle with yourself, be gentle on the questions that you're asking or that relate to here. So for instance, today I landed on reflection time. Now I wouldn't necessarily have dived in and gone onto the card with the clock and said, okay, when by, depending on what the person said. So a lot of this, you're not going to get it wrong. A lot of it is just listening and reflecting and really feeling the reflections that you give into the person or what they have told you. So when it says play the game, so on each throw of the dice to state the area of focus and why. That's the biggest point. So on the first throw, as each person's about to throw the dice and you say, okay, which area of change did you choose and why did you choose that? It's in yellow for a reason, because that's the most important question on the whole of this board, is finding out why somebody's chosen what they've chosen. Because what you're doing is you're listening to what they're saying and you're listening and picking up on their energy and the tone that they use. And so then throughout the game, you're just unraveling that. You know, like when you're in England, many people will say, yeah, I'm fine, as an example. Fine, one, isn't a feeling. It's more to do with the weather. And 2, that person needs to unravel something. I'm fine. It's like, okay, well, describe what fine means to me. So what we're doing is unraveling our everyday language, which is why people love this game in many ways, is because they're having to have a different dialogue than what they're used to. Okay, so they're used to maybe brushing things over because people haven't got time. Whereas this is about spending that time really delving, just them, their story, their path, creating their card. So stage 5, play the game by completing the tasks indicated on the space on which you land, noting on side 2 any actions arising. So as we start playing these first layers, these first layers are taking us onto side 1 of the card. So we're answering some of these questions. As we shift forward, we start getting into actions, and that's when side 2 comes in. Especially if you've completed a space on one of the sides, on side 1, as an example, and you think, oh, there's no space left. It's because either there's an action to be taken, which is sowing the seed. So it's like there might be some research that needs to be done, or something that just needs to be done to take it on to the next action. Nurturing is to make sure that we've got something that we're looking after ourselves whilst we're reaching and stepping out to these goals. And then reap is that if you take these actions, what will you reap at the end of it? What will you see? What will manifest? What do you hope to see? What is your dreams? What's your goals? What's your hopes? So that's how the card works. The card works that as we're going along the board, these little questions will pop up. We're helping people to get used to talking on this side one. We're helping people to engage with us and tell us more. So as we're going through these first 7 days, that's ultimately what we're doing, is just getting a feel of the person. So when you land on one, as an example, you go to the, every time you land on a seedling, you then go to the card, you answer the question on there, and then you go to the card. Some people, they'll get the clock, it's reflection time. So then it's just a case of collect the clock, put it to one side for later with these boxes. So these boxes help us to clarify and summarize the game. When you land on take new health steps, then again, relating to the story of what they've chosen, we then collect a seedling for them, and then we put it onto the card, if you will, and it's like, how will your health improve? So depending on what they've said in terms of what their goal is, then we're saying, how's that going to improve your health? Because obviously they're moving towards change, and hopefully that should make them feel better. So we're identifying, okay, so what's going on with your health right now that you'll know, yes, I've moved forward with this plan because my health is feeling however it's feeling. When we hit on the cloud on day 4, it says, who taught you about money? Now, it doesn't matter what people answer here. They can answer mother, father, nobody, and myself. The aim really, if they're playing the game, is just getting a reward for talking and speaking their truth. That's all that it is. So I'm not saying they're not relevant, the answers, but they don't necessarily have to relate to the ultimate goal. And you'll see that when we land on day 6. Day 5, treat, throw again. So this on day 5, this symbol is personal development. So this is about the inner work. So when it says treat, that's about an inside job that's nurturing you. And it's what I call the undergrowth. That symbol I call the undergrowth because it's under the earth, and it's where the seedling is nurtured. Excuse me. So I call that the undergrowth. So when it's treat and throw again, you throw again. That's what it's telling you to do. On day 6, the share your dream. So again, we collect the rainbow as that person shares their dream. Now, often the common question is, people will say, is that dream about my goal, or is that a dream generally? I always try and help them to stick to the goal, but then sometimes I just throw it back and just say, whatever you want to share is your dream, because they might expand more than what they've said here. So again, you're feeling your way, share your dream. You're wanting that person just to come out of the shell and to blossom. So whatever that is. So when they've shared the dream, and if it relates to here, they go to the bottom of the card where it's got the undergrowth, the rainbow, and it's okay, write that down in your dream. Write that down in a sentence. And all you're doing is anchoring in the conversation that it's been had. So somebody might talk for a long time about the dream, and then you're saying, okay, break it down into a sentence so that it can fit on here. But the energetics have already been put out there. So it's perfectly fine. They're just making a record here. As I said, when we first start from day 1 to more or less day 7, we're just warming up with the game. So don't be too concerned about really seriously answering some of these questions. It depends on what somebody said. So when it says like, who's taught you about money? Then on here it is, how much? On the card it says, how much do you want? But because it's the money, it's about how much do you want to attract in terms of finances. And so we don't say how much yearly, monthly. We just say how much, because on the board, you're going to possibly land on 6 clouds or 6 areas you're going to land on 6 potential of the same pattern. So So the questions there are just little prompts for you. So if somebody says how much, as an example, and they say, oh, £2,000, then you know that you can break that down into yearly. Is it 2,000 for the year, or is it 2,000 for the month? But we just ask how much, first one. Then the second part, if they land on, again, it's like, okay, how much do you want yearly? Because often when we're landing on these parts, they're saying to us, dig deeper, dig deeper, dig deeper. So we don't just dive straight in there and answer all the questions all at once, all in one go. We're breaking it down. So that's what we do when it comes to money. We do the same for all of them. For planning time on day 7, go back 2 spaces. Often when people land on the day 7 and day 5, as an example, so it's day 7, planning time, move back 2 spaces. When people go back these 2 spaces, it's often because there's something else that needs to come up. So you might be asking the same question again. So it says treat. So we go onto here. What is stopping you? So, you know, in this particular one, I've just said making sure I put myself first, as an example. And then I must have landed on it again, which I did because I've got 2 at the side on here. And so I put spiritual growth, and I actually put be upfront with my needs. How interesting. Now, I would have asked the question, what's stopping you? And then I would have said, okay, what barriers do you think could either stop you from moving forward, or that you can possibly see that's going to stop you from moving forward with your goal, or with, you know, what you're aiming for? So those questions on here, they are to prompt you to help that person to go deeper. So it's not what is stopping you barriers, it's what is stopping you. And then if you land on that again, it's like, okay, so what barriers are there? So hopefully that'll make a bit of sense to you. Once you've answered the questions here, then feel free to switch over to the other side and give that person an action. If somebody lands on a personal development one again, further down here, they might throw 6 as an example, and they get to here, treat, throw again. Then I'd be saying, okay, in order for you to get to your goal, which the area of change at the top, to get to here, how are you going to look after yourself? What are you going to nurture yourself with? So nurture is what that means on that side. And then the sowing the seed, as an example, is somebody might never have done meditation before, as an example, and you might be suggesting that, or you might be suggesting maybe a meditation, as I said, or a piece of work that might help that person to shift a blockage. So that might come up, and it might be, okay, so where are you going to get that information from? Where do you think you could get it from? So they're sowing the seed. Actually, I could get it from possibly searching on the internet, that kind of thing. So I'm going to stop there right now, because hopefully that's given you an idea of how to get started with playing the game. And literally, as I said, the intention is that we push past these 7 days, just gently, still reflecting to the card, and just warming up to know that we're going to be doing this back and forth. Fill this side in as we're going round, and then the action plan starts coming. When you start moving beyond the double figures on the board, that's where the action plan starts kicking in. So the first part, we're doing just a bit of a planning out, pulling things out, and then that's getting an action plan together. Thank you for listening. See you next time.